Hello everybody, the Lord Roots here, and today I want to look at Audacity, but not just cutting up clips in Audacity as some people might use it for. I actually want to talk about it as a platform for recording music, and in particular I want to talk about multitracking. Now for the uninitiated, multitracking is basically this idea to where you layer different recordings on top of each other and you would get a song or whatever. So here is an excerpt from my Noseman family series. I'm just going to play a little bit of it because I'm sure you want to get on to the rest of the tutorial, but just a couple of bars. Woman's name is Mary, her husband goes by Harry, her in-law is contrary and quite scary. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, definitely I am playing an instrument of some kind, although it would appear that I'm playing the bass and the guitar at the same time. I'm also singing my own backup vocals. And this particular trick is nothing new. It was supposedly invented by Les Paul, who is probably best known for the guitar that he invented, and probably more accurately as the inventor of the modern electric guitar, but he was also quite an accomplished jazz musician. And one of the things he invented was a sort of tape recorder to where he could record himself playing all these different tracks, and occasionally Mary Ford would get involved and they'd do these awesome recordings that way to where they might have up to 27 tracks. So yeah, this is useful if, you maybe are just getting into playing an instrument. Maybe you've been playing for a while like me, even though I'm hardly the best. I just sort of mess around as I feel like it. And, you want to make some kind of art. Maybe your bandmates are out of town, or maybe you don't have bandmates, or something like that. So what I am going to do here is I am simply going to go down to this other window I have here, and I'm going to kill some of these tracks here. This is what it looks like when you first enter Audacity. And the first thing I recommend you do is I recommend that you go to click track here and that you generate a click track. And the main reason for this is because you have to contend with latency. Now, really anything in terms of electronics, or anything else in the universe for that matter, has a certain speed at which it cannot exceed. That kind of rhymes, I guess. Anyhow, if you know about relativity, you know that once you hit the speed of light, weird stuff starts happening. When you get beyond the speed of light, even weirder stuff happens. And so you've got this issue to where there is already some kind of delay when you record. And not only that, but on a computer, you have other things to deal with. So in a modern operating system, you have this thing called time slicing usually. If you have multi-core, like most modern computers do, and this one, for instance, has 4 cores in it, you can get away, for the most part, with having 1 core dedicated to your recording, but you have other things going on as well. For instance, the memory bus on the computer is a shared resource. Even 2 processors that are otherwise running at the same time cannot simultaneously access the memory, or else it'll cause something called a bus conflict. And so while they do have these things called caches that help, you got that working against you. And a multitasking operating system that uses time slicing, like Windows or even like Linux, you also have the fact that each process gets a little bit of the time on the CPU, and then a timer basically comes by and says, hey, it's time for us to switch to the next process. And in many cases, it'll go through all of the processes with some modifications for priority, but this isn't really good for recording. So that is why I'm putting in the click track, and here you can actually do a number of things. So what I am going to do is first of all show you that you can change the speed and the time signature. So we're going to go at 3/4 at 100 beats per minute. And as you can see, we've got something that might be suitable for a waltz. I'm not going to play a waltz, however, so that's not what I'm going to use. Instead, I am going to go to the more standard 120 beats per minute in common time. So that's about it for that. And what we can do now is we can record ourselves a track of some kind. I like to record the music first. Likely the rhythm is usually what comes up first, but sometimes, it just really depends on what I'm doing. And so I'm going to use an A D chord, and an E chord for that. So, yeah, we'll start right on measure 3. So we'll get that going. Okay, so you'll notice two things. First of all, I didn't do my math properly, and therefore the click track did not end up in the right place. But if we replay this back, however, you'll notice another thing probably as well. That I'm not perfectly synchronized, and that is a bit of an issue. That's, of course, due to the latency that I just described. But, yeah, we might throw on another track as well. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do more of a lead guitar deal. Okay, so we more or less have a second track here, I guess a lead track. And, we can already hear quite a bit of a difference. It's not just me playing a bunch of chords anymore. And so that's pretty nifty, at least to my way of thinking. I think that we could possibly maybe put down a bass line, and this is kind of difficult because my bass guitar is not plugged into an amp, and it is way across the room. So how do I do that? Well, there's one way that I found works pretty well. I could do maybe something like okay, so let's say that this is our bass line, a very simple one. And this is not a very convincing bass line because it's in the same octave as the guitar. So what can we do with that? Well, we've got these filters here that we can put in, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to change pitch. This is different than maybe speeding up or slowing down. You could change the tempo here, but we can say I want a percent change of -50, and it'll keep the time domain the same. But now if we play this, we should get an octave difference. And so we could utilize that. I'm going to re-record that track briefly and apply that change to it so we can move on to the next step. We now have the opportunity to maybe throw in a vocal track, and I think that would be a good idea. I'm just going to come up with something off the top of my head. I hadn't thought about lyrics, so I'm just going to give it a go, and we can see how it works with the rest of the track. So here we go. I like tacos because they're tasty. Oh yeah. I can buy a taco at a taco stand in Mexico. Actually, I lied because the taco's an American invention, like the pizza and maybe something else that I can't remember. Oh yeah. Okay, so one thing that we might want to do now is throw in maybe some harmony tracks, and that could be done too. It really depends on how you want to do this. We could do something kind of like Crosby, Stills, and Nash. This is part of the track I just recorded here. You'll notice it's a bit rough. So I like tacos because they're tasty. Oh yeah. I can buy a taco at a taco stand in Mexico. Okay, that's a bit rough, so what I usually like to do at this point is save the original track. I'm just going to mute it and re-record it, this time making sure that I get my timing correct. This is what I came up with. Nothing too big. You'll notice here I've adjusted the volume on this. You might want to adjust the master volume or the track volume to suit your needs. So, for instance, I think this guy is too loud. Because they're tasty. Oh yeah. I can buy a taco at a taco stand in Mexico. Okay, so other things you might feel like doing. Let's say you want to solo a track real quick. You can hit solo here and it'll only play that track. This, I believe, is the lead guitar. Far from it, actually. This guy right here would be it then. And we may decide possibly that we want to apply some other effects to it. Audacity does come with some filters that you can use for this. So what you could maybe do here is where we have this area here, we can maybe flange it. Because that might go well with the, or maybe wah rather, that might go well with the pitch bend there. So, if we play it now, we would have something kind of like this.
I like tacos because they're tasty. Oh yeah. I could buy a taco at a taco stand in Mexico. Actually, I lied because tacos an American invention. Like the pizza that maybe sells there, I can't remember. Oh yeah.
So there we go. That's more or less a simple introduction to the whole multi-tracking thing. You could probably do a whole lot better than I did, I'm sure. But mess around with it and see maybe what you can crank out. Until then, this has been Dialogue Root, and I will see you later.